everyone. Uh, Lots of familiar faces here, some not familiar faces. It's great to meet you all. Yeah, my name is Jay. I'm the CEO and the founder of Casper Studios. We're an AI implementation agency. Been at it for the past couple of years, helping companies like hedge funds, private equity firms, growth stage startups, Netflix, Pepsi, and many others to be able to either design and build external facing AI products or to be able to help implement AI into their workflows. Um, I'll kind of walk through a little bit more about our business quickly, but the goal for today is to be able to walk you all through some of the stuff that our team has been doing with Claude Code, specifically related to how to be able to use it for non-technical users. The context for this is quite literally on Wednesday evening, I had pinged Max, who's one of our tech leads here at Casper. Hey, I actually don't know how to use Claude Code. Everybody's telling me that I should be using it as a non-technical user. Do you mind doing it on a team meeting on Friday? He's like, yeah, sure. And so, as I do, I just kind of took a screenshot of that, posted on LinkedIn, and now we have, almost 40 people in the room, effectively joining an internal call. We had like a day or so to be able to prepare all this stuff. And so, what you're joining right now, I would frame it as more of kind of like an internal conversation between our team and Max, with a little bit of structure baked into it. So, I think keep the questions coming through the chat. The frame for today, we're going to keep it relatively conceptual and high level. If there's some demand, we can actually just hop on another call next week and maybe be a little bit more practical. Actually, like jump into helping you install all the different interfaces you need to use and everything. But today we're gonna talk a little bit about the business. We're gonna talk about how we think about agents generally. We're gonna talk about how we use Claude Code in our day to day. Max is gonna effectively teach me how to be able to use it as a non-technical user. I'm just a sales guy here. And then we're going to show you a demo of how we've been able to use it ourselves. And then we'll kind of free up the room for any questions. So why don't we just get started? So, okay, second. Great. So, and then just keep the comments, keep the vibe going in the chat, and if you have any questions, we can start to answer them there as well. Cool. Okay. All right, cool. So we're going to talk about Claude Code today. Let's jump into it. Already kind of talked a little bit about what we do. We work with a bunch of different folks. We have, people that have worked at all these really great companies. We have around 20 people on our team today. I used to work at LinkedIn for 5.5 years. We have folks that, are coming from PwC, Bain, Elliott & Co, Accenture, advisors at OpenAI and Google. And it's been a ton of fun to be able to work with all kinds of companies to, go through and help them with education, enablement, and also actual custom engineering. People come to us to be able to help them kind of deploy AI into their companies or to, again, build external facing AI products. We've built, what is one of the largest consumer voice agents for marketing collaboration with Doritos and Netflix, which is a ton of fun. We build our own applications. And again, like I mentioned, we help other companies implement that into their businesses, hedge funds, family offices, healthcare companies, fintechs, growth stage startups, you name it. Some of our principles for how we think about implementing AI, just really quickly. One of them is hit singles and doubles. As you can probably tell throughout the conversation today, we try to keep things simple. We also recommend that companies do the same. Don't go for the home runs. Do the simple kind of automations that all kind of build up confidence in a broader, big thing that you can go for over time. And I think that's been kind of resonating with the market. On top of that, we also think about building modularly. So you can kind of use pieces that can be reused across future automations. I actually think Max will be able to go a little bit deeper into how that principle gets baked into even using Claude Code today. And we think that AI today and the capabilities of the technology are not the bottleneck anymore. It's people, the processes, et cetera. The education, some of what we're doing today is actually the real bottleneck. And we do a bunch of AI education and consulting. And like today, we'll kind of walk through one of those pieces of education. So what are we covering today? We're going to go through a little bit of overview of agents, how we think about it, a conceptual look at the landscape, why we think Claude Code is interesting now for non-technical users. And you'll almost sense that I am you. I have a bunch of questions. Max is going to kind of help me go through this. So I'll even start to interrupt if I don't understand something, and hopefully you can kind of do the same. Explanation of a couple key concepts of Claude Code, and then we'll go through a use case that we just did last week. What we're not going to do today is like walk you through all the systems. We're all gonna be debugging things and downloading things, and it's gonna just take a long time with a group this big. But we'll give you some documentation afterwards, and maybe if there's more demand for this, we can just hop on next week to be able to maybe go through some more of that in detail. Okay, Max, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Yeah, hey everybody, Max here, AI engineer here at Casper Studios. I'm gonna briefly just like talk about agents, and we're gonna use like Claude Code as a way to like ground this conversation in something tangible. Claude Code is a very like good proxy for like how we should be thinking about using agents, building agents, and working with them. What is an agent, Jay? If you want to hop to the next screen here. Claude Code is one of many different coding agents out there in a landscape that just is continuing to get more competitive. One thing that like emerged, probably like 3 or 4 months ago, after people like widely adopted Claude Code, is that Claude Code actually is a great tool for non-technical use cases as well. A big chunk of my day is spent writing code. I use Claude Code. I actually use like half or almost all the tools on this webpage to write code, but I almost only exclusively use Claude Code for my non-technical AI tasks. So that's what we'll talk about today, is not necessarily how do we generate code with Claude Code, but how do we do non-technical tasks to make ourselves more efficient. I use Claude Code in like a variety of different ways. I use it to help like organize my work and keep me focused. More kind of like on the personal side, I use it to manage my fantasy football team. One of the 2 teams it manages is doing much better than when I was running it, and the other one is not doing very well. And then if we have time at the end, I'll kind of like demonstrate how you might interact with code bases. If you're a product leader or working with engineers, Claude Code can be a good intermediary for you to interact with the code in your products. And my kind of North Star over the next months is, can I get Jay to push a PR on one of our internal agents? So we'll see if I can get him there. But anyway, Jay, if you want to roll to the next slide as well. So we're all kind of like familiar with the term agent at this point in time. There's a million different definitions to what an agent is. I like to think of it as a spectrum. On one hand, you have high autonomy, low human oversight agentic systems. Probably the leader in that space is Claude Code, along with some of these other coding agents. All of our like leading agents right now are in the coding space. And then on the other end of the spectrum is what we talk about as workflows. These are like predefined, fairly static systems that may call LLMs within them to execute some tasks. The number of tools in those systems is limited, and you've constrained where the LLMs are used within those workflows. So as we talk about things today and I field questions, just remember that like agents are very much a spectrum. And so on one hand, you might just have like, hey, I'm going to summarize my emails. And on the other hand, you might just be delegating some like high level, feature development or research to Claude Code. You can skip to the next one. I won't dwell on this too much. I think this is kind of like another like good framing of these two different ends of the spectrum. Just think autonomy, like level of humans steering the system is much higher on the workflow side. And then like on the far agentic side, we're kind of unconstraining the models and letting the models do their thing. There's like 3 key like components to any agent, and this is like very important to how you work with Claude Code. And again, in addition to that, it's very it's very key to like working with any agent system. And as we have more tools at our disposal, these three paradigms likely will not change very much. So any agent consists of a prompt, some context, and a set of tools. We're all familiar with prompting at this point. Models can have very specific, or agents can have very specific prompts. They also might have very generic prompts. Claude Code has two different paradigms for storing prompts. You have a concept called slash commands, and you have a concept called subagents. The core difference between those things is the context that those prompts receive. A slash command, as I'll show you guys in a little bit here, takes the existing conversation as part of its context, and a subagent uses an entirely new context window. So the only context a subagent will see is whatever your like primary agent tells it. And there's some like specific nuance in there. You can actually tell your primary agent what you want it to tell the subagent. Context management is like the number one most important skill everybody should be thinking about developing, regardless of your job. If you're working with AI systems, the way to get any sort of value out of them is managing the context that your agent's seeing at any given time. I am frequently clearing my context window when I'm doing tasks. I frequently am delegating tasks to subagents to preserve context window. And one of the limitations I find when I'm using Claude in the browser or Claude desktop is that I have much less control over the context window. So I still use like Claude desktop or ChatGPT for like one-off things when I just need, like I need something summarized or I need to search across a document or something like that. But if I need more granular control over the context window, I will use Claude Code. And then tools. This is another reason why you might use Claude Code over Claude Desktop or ChatGPT is that the tools are much more flexible. In any of these desktop applications, we're kind of limited to whatever integrations are pre-built in there, or if the system you're trying to integrate with has some sort of MCP server, you can pull that in. With a tool like Claude Code, you're only constrained by the code that can be written by Claude. Yeah, Jay.
So like I told you all, team, I'm gonna try to just act like this is a one-on-one meeting, and I have a bunch of questions, and hopefully that you have similar questions in mind. How do you think about the overlap between context and tools, Max? Like if you're connecting a tool to another database or a Google Drive or a SharePoint, isn't that also context? Like how would you kind of think about those two different things? Is there overlap or are they distinct? How do those two concepts relate?
Yeah, that's a great question. Any tool use your agent uses is going to consume some context window, and so with that in mind, if you have like a dozen tools that you want to tie in, you're going to quickly fill up that context window, and you're going to begin to see the model go sideways. And so when we think of like managing your context and the tools that you're plugging in, this is a great way to segment tools by subagents so that maybe your agents are only seeing like 3 or 4 tools at a time. And then anytime that tool gets so there's just adding tools to an agent fills up your context window. And then when you use the tool, that also fills up your context window. So Anthropic and a lot of these companies will say you have 1 million tokens worth of context window. I think that's basically just a marketing ploy. You have to think of it as like you have 200,000 tokens of context window, which is not very much. Some of that context window is allocated to the system prompts that they install in there. And then if you have tools as well, that's going to consume it as well. So being very diligent about what tools you're connecting, using, and then trying to segment them by subagents is a good way to think about that. Yeah, we can move forward here. Always be thinking about context. The most value I get out of any conversation with Claude Code or any agent is when I tell it to do one thing and one thing only, and when it's done that thing, I clear the context window. And you can do that with subagents as well. So I kind of touched on this a little bit. why would you use Claude Code or over like a ChatGPT or a Claude browser, Claude desktop? You have a lot more control, right? This is designed for developers. First and foremost, developers love having very granular control over their software. No file size restrictions, access to all of your files on your computer. So if you have like a large directory of things that you want Claude to search over, you can just have it do that natively from your terminal, and then like versus having to upload all those files in the browser. A lot longer chat lengths, a lot more flexibility in how you like manage your prompts, manage your tools. And I think like most importantly, Claude Code gives you like helps you gain like a true like intuition where the limitations of AI currently are and where kind of AI product development is going. Jay and I were chatting about this morning. Like the terminal-based usage of Claude Code is not going to be the final form factor that something like this takes. And so while the terminal for non-technical folks is might be a little bit intimidating, if anything you take away from this call, the reason you should just like jump into it is because it'll help you gain a better intuition for where AI is headed. Like certainly like in a few years from now, and Anthropic has said this publicly, like I don't expect that non-technical users will be like typing in the browser. I think you will have tools that just like are more ergonomic for the way agents in AI works, that are much more accessible. So don't be too intimidated by the terminal. Use that as a learning experience, and happy to help anyone get that set up at some point in the future here if it is a little too intimidating. I'm going to pause real quick. Like any questions, any like discussion points we want to hop into. Otherwise, I will show how I conduct market research with Claude Code.
Yeah, I have a question here. I was wondering if you thought that Claude Code was better for context management than, let's say, Cursor, for example, because you said that for non-technical stuff, you mainly use Claude Code, but all those things, could you not also do them in Cursor?
So I haven't used Cursor in a while, full transparency. I do use Windsurf right now. And I do find like you have some ability to manage context well. Like if you have the chat application open, you can ask it questions, create a new chat, same thing. I think it is like if on one hand of like context management, we have like Claude Desktop or ChatGPT, and on the other hand, we have Claude Code, like Cursor, Windsurf, somewhere in the middle. Gives you more flexibility in those desktop apps. But the speed and ease at which I can spin up sub-agents in Claude Code to do tasks and then just like summarize whatever the output of that is, bring it back to my primary model and delete that sub-agent's context window is like very powerful. Like in the example I'll show, like we're going to go do like deep research, not the trademarked version, like on a number of softwares. And like it's going to do it in parallel and it's going to like bring that data back in. I think that would be pretty hard to do in Cursor, but there potentially is functionality though.
Well, thanks.
Any other questions? Thanks, Eva. Any other questions before Max jumps in to kind of walking through the terminal a little bit? I think the piece that is standing out for me around like why Claude Code for non-technical use cases is this idea of sub agents. And I think the way I was trying to kind of understand it myself, talking with Max, is, if I'm working with another person and I told that person, hey, go accomplish like this really big task and come back to me with it. Essentially, like the accuracy and like the depth of kind of output may be a little bit more vague or not as complete versus kind of asking people that are potentially experts in those sub-tasks to be able to go accomplish it and then come back together. So in my mind, and Max, you could challenge me, it almost felt like you're kind of working with a team versus just working with one person. and that team can have their own like specialized skill sets that can go accomplish those sub tasks. So then the actual output of that, let's say we're running a competitive analysis for other vendors for a client, which Max will walk through. Then the actual analysis would be better because you're kind of distributing the work to other kind of experts versus just having one person generalized to be able to accomplish that. Is that kind of like a fair framing, or is there anything kind of inaccurate about that, Max?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good framing. Like, just think about if I was going to manually go research like 5 different softwares, all that context I would have to manage in my head, like would quickly become like pretty overwhelming. Versus like if I had a team of 5 folks, each one dedicated to one software, you can go much deeper and have a much more valuable output. And so that's how I kind of think of it.
Thank you. Go for it.
Hey, thanks, Max. Very helpful so far. As the conversation goes, could you also touch upon the topic of skills and how that's different or similar to agents? I always get confused between the two. So just wanted to put the question out and leave it with you.
Yeah. I haven't gone like super deep on skills yet, to be completely honest either. I like kind of like stepwise into these things as like my like workflows demand it. Kind of getting back to some of actually, honestly, like the singles and doubles approach. Like the nice thing about skills is that you can package up like a much more substantial like group of work. So like I believe it's like skills is like you can have a sub agent. You might even be able to delegate some like other sub agents within that skill, give it access to a set of data and tools, and then it's like also shareable. So like as you have like repeatable substantial workflows, it just makes it like easier to transport that. And I think the direction that's going is that like right now sub agents and skills are pretty basic in Claude Code. And I think in the future they will have, I believe they have like Claude has a plugin marketplace right now. They're going to have a skills marketplace if they don't already. Like we'll be able to build full agents in Claude Code and then like share those. And I believe like skills is like the first step towards that direction. So to be very explicit, Nikhil, I'd say like start with sub agents. If you feel like you need to add more complexity to how those sub agents operate, skills would be the next step there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so the benefit of subject agents usually, so context management is a big one, right? So thanks, Max.
Yeah. Frankly, it all comes back to context management. That if you can get an answer from an LLM with like just like an exchange of like 2 like chat turns, then that's like an excellent outcome. When we do like very big tasks, the LLM will just begin to get very distracted as that context grows. We probably all experience that to some degree. So managing your context window, it's like all roads lead back to that.
We had a good question come in quickly, Max. I don't know if you have a take on this, but Mudit was saying that you saw Claude Code launch for web a few weeks ago. And then he's asking like, why would anybody execute web versus terminal? Do you have a how would you answer that?
Yeah.
I actually don't know myself.
I was actually gonna like maybe show an example of web at the end of this if we had time. So why would you do it on web versus terminal? Like right now, I think the only real use case is like, hey, like I'm in an Uber going to the airport and I don't have my laptop and like I want to like get a feature going. Technically, there's some like I think about these through like the developer mindset. So maybe I'll just like think out loud about how the non-technical side, like as a developer, I need like my local environment reproduced in the web environment. And there's a fair bit of setup that has to happen. So it has some like limitations from that side. I've used it to literally like generate GitHub issues from bed, just so then I can like go, like when I get out of bed, like go pull the GitHub issue and like start working on it. For like non-technical use cases, like managing my fantasy football team, like I could probably easily kick that off from the web version. And I suspect for non-technical use cases where you have less of this need for specific credentialing and environment setup that's on my local laptop, it actually might be like way more useful because you can just ask it to go do stuff and let it rip. But I'll show you if we have time at the end. I'll show how I might use this for us internally.
Cool. Any last minute questions, and then we'll hand it over to Max. So maybe I can, Max, you're going to walk through the actual use case right now, or are you going to show, okay, so then I can set some context for what the use case is. So some of our work team that we do, again, our kind of offerings to the market is helping with education, enablement, or engineering. Education is kind of what we're doing right now, but maybe more tailored per company. Enablement is like setting up no code automations and or like helping a company do a build by partner analysis. And the third one is more custom engineering. So one of our this is a real use case of one of our customers that asked us, hey, we are looking at different workflow automation platforms that we want to procure. We're looking at N8N, we're looking at Gumloop, we're looking at Relay, we're looking at a couple of these things. Do you mind helping us run an analysis and figure out which vendor to be able to use? And so that was an actual discrete task that, it was like, hey, Max, do you mind kind of running a vendor analysis on this? For perspective, I used to do a lot of that work within the BD team at LinkedIn, and some of the stuff would maybe take like a couple of weeks. Talking to people, like running an analysis, like getting the research, like looking at, creating a document, etc. And so that's kind of the context. Context is the key word today, I suppose, to kind of share before Max kind of walks through how he actually executed on that project, elements of that project through Claude Code. So go for it, Max.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else is like going through the due diligence of trying to differentiate between these no-code platforms, but it's not easy. Yeah, so we did like deep discovery with this client, and we were able to build, get a real sense for like what their current software stack is, and like a very detailed use of use cases for AI. And there's client data in here, so I don't necessarily want to show that, but we had like a lot of like good context from these discussions we had. And I was able to like pull that data from some of the documentation that we had created, some of the transcripts. And my very first step is like, okay, we need to create a prompt. And so the like very like, how do I put this? Like one of the nicest ways like Claude Code helps is that I can like write prompts in a markdown file in plain text like this, and like easily inject them into Claude Code. Like a couple notes on developing prompts. Prompts are really good when you're being specific. Actually, like being specific in a prompt and also being generic can be helpful in different prompts depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Very like nuanced discussion to be had there. But in this case, I wanted to be like very explicit about what I wanted. So I list like the high level task context, give it a little bit of background on like who we're working with, a list of softwares that they have internally. I like added the use case table in a markdown file just to ask Claude to translate that. So anytime I mention, I have this like @ symbol and then a file after it, it will read that file as part of the prompt. So when we talk about context management, this is like a super simple, like super powerful way to reference things in my files over here, just natively into other prompts. And like, while this seems small, it results in like way higher quality prompts and like way easier to build effective prompts than in some of our web UIs. So I then kind of go down here and I tell it like, provide the following instructions to each subagent along with the expected output format. It's really important to tell Claude to use subagents. This probably won't be an issue for like the long term, but in the near term, Claude does not necessarily just automatically delegate tasks to subagents. It'll just do it itself. So you need to tell it to use a subagent. And subagents are very simple. You can do your agent command down here, just /agents. And here's all the subagents that I have currently sitting in across all of my projects. I'm not going to create a new agent here, but if I hit create agent, it's as dead simple as me just describing the agent I want, and then it will create the necessary file. So all this is done with just like natural language. I'm guessing that's a question. Yeah.
Hey, Jay here. How do you think about what sub agents to create or use? Like, is there a framework that we should be kind of thinking about when you're thinking about creating a new agent or creating a new sub agent or using the one that you've already created? How should we think about that?
Yep. I think there's like this natural inclination from folks that your sub agents should fill like literal roles that you might have on the team. If you look at my 4 sub agents down here, I have the code base locator, code base analyzer, code simplifier, and a UI developer. So of these 4, only one of them might we bucket as like a human job. And I think it's natural that we want to like bucket these into human jobs, but in reality, like think context first. Sometimes that might result in like a human job or like a human anthropomorphic type agent. But in reality, it like comes down to like what other context do you need to go gather that the sub agent's going to do for you? And when it does that task, it's going to generate a whole bunch more context that you don't need. And you only want a little bit of that context. So great example of this is code base locator. I have a sub agent that any agent can call to go find the exact line item within a file that like some arbitrary task or like question I have exists. And like that task will result in Claude like searching across the entire code base, reading a bunch of files, when all I need is like a single line item in that file, like this sentence. And so that task results in a ton of context I don't need and a little bit of context I do need. So it's a great use case for a sub agent, because when the code base locator agent is complete, it'll just return like, this sentence is on line 67 of your product research file without me having to know anything else about this file. So I hope that kind of makes sense. But like try and think like context first. Like what context do I need? What context do I not need? And then like prompting the agents to like go get that context.
Yeah,
And
I think this is like I think this is like a moving conversation. Like how are we defining how we work with AI today? And like again, it makes sense that we're trying to kind of port over an existing mental model of roles to accomplish sub-agent tasks, or even not even with regards to kind of Claude Code. Just generally, it's like, I may procure like a AI SDR or something, or AI marketer, and I think it feels like this is a transitionary point. It feels like this is kind of one example of putting the early internet of like putting a newspaper online and like that's your website. And then it's interesting to kind of try to figure out like what that next mental model is. And so this is probably a transition, or maybe it's not. And so if you guys ever have any thoughts on this, I think it's interesting to debate. Continue on, Max.
Yeah, I think it's all a transition, right? Like it's so early, we're all trying to figure out the best way to do this, which is why it's good to get your hands with tools that are largely unconstrained. Just like one last piece on sub agents, you can prompt your primary agent to give the sub agent specific things to do, and you should do this. So I am telling the primary agent down here, and we'll kind of show this when it runs, to tell the sub agent go do this, and then to input like the URL of the product and like some specific research instructions. I'm like being kind of intentionally vague here to just like kind of harness some of that raw intelligence, and then also tell the sub agent to return this. So, right, there's a lot of like stuff the sub agent when it's researching a software is going to go do. And I don't need to know everything. These are like the core things I wanted to know when evaluating these. And I should like say that I actually did manual research this exact process first. So I had an idea in my head, like, okay, these are the softwares that I would recommend. And then I wanted to see what Claude came up with. And we were like pretty close, probably largely because I like was able to give it a very detailed prompt. A couple other like notes down here, like this is the output that I want to see, and you're going to write it to a report. Step 4 is kind of interesting. I said, hey, like provide a recommendation, and this is how I'm going to like weight these items. I didn't like personally take this into like massive account in this exact use case, but I was kind of curious, like, what would happen here. And my ranking, like, I was like, we want to use like tool A, tool B, tool C. These are all the tools we were looking at. And my ranking, my tool A was Claude's tool B, and my tool B was Claude's tool A. So kind of like interesting. And I did override Claude. And then like final instructions, like here's the softwares we're gonna go take a look at. Like go do this. And I'll just kick this off right now so we can just kind of get a feel for what this looks like. It does take a little bit of time, so I don't know that we'll spend too much time on it, but this is as simple as this. So I've generated my prompt. I'm going to use the @command product research, and this is the file. So now Claude's going to read this file, and it's just going to go. And we can just watch Claude run. And I don't know who has their hand raised. You can ask a question.
Hey Max, it's Derek here.
Hi.
Quick question on behalf of the group. One thing I think for this, when we were working on this, it's like, how much do you think you should kind of make decisions and pre-bake? Like, for example, we already had a set of systems in mind and bake that directly in here. It's like, hey, I want you to execute this process, but look at these, versus making it more open-ended where it first, will go out and kind of find all the platforms that are out there and then execute it. Like, what do you think the practical balance is of letting it do exploration versus making it a bit more constrained?
And then and then to overlay on that, like how does the idea of like a planner agent kind of come into that?
Yeah. So I'll touch on both of those. So you can see here now it's spinning up 6 sub-agents. The task tool is a sub-agent. And you can see in here, we'll get a count for how many tools a sub-agent is using. Oh, should have gone dangerously skip all, but actually give me 1 sec here and then I'll answer these questions. So Derek.
I was gonna say, I think I was also studying this a little bit earlier. I think what Max is showing is that there's a prompt you can put in earlier that just says like dangerously skip permissions, which I think just means that it just keeps running instead of asking you to kind of sign it. Yeah, that's interesting too. Sorry. Go.
User discretion. See, this is kind of funny. I'm gonna actually just like reset this. This is why we like to. Let me explain what happened here. So it delegated tasks to 6 different research agents. And then it wanted my permission. It was going to ask me permission to use a lot of tools across those 6 agents, which gets very overwhelming. I interrupted it, and then I passed the dangerously skip permissions flag, which will allow it to just execute tool use without my permission. And you can see that when I told it to continue, it actually didn't delegate these tasks anymore. So sometimes like this is, these models are early. There's still a decent degree of like human intervention that needs to happen. So speaking of context management, I'm literally just going to clear this and I'm just going to run this again and we'll let it go. Okay, Derek, your question about like how constrained. This is, I like there are probably, I don't think anyone has a good answer to this. Like this is kind of the vibe side of the equation. I just kind of like feel these things out. Since I started and did this research manually, like I knew this list of softwares that I was like interested in, but I didn't go like super deep on, and that's why I decided to like be pretty explicit here. Under like a different scenario, you might just give it like a list of like 50 of them and like have it pick a few based off of like the description and then do deep research on a few other ones. Or you might just say, hey, like go figure it out. We do all these things across different projects and it's just a use case by use case basis thing. And sometimes it like doesn't work and you need to constrain it a little bit more, but there's a high degree of like experimentation we should all be doing here.
Well, one thing I might add to that, I think, is like we do naturally and in a lot of our client work approach this as well. I think like the way you've just like built this agent, it was able to execute the actual research part and providing a report like very well. And so I imagine maybe the next time around, like we give it a little bit more leeway to do kind of like the system selection itself, you know, because we know that like once it gets the systems, it can actually kind of do the research well, and you continue to like kind of expand out. But if we told it to kind of like research, you know, grab everything and then do this, if it's like a low quality answer, it's unclear. It's like, did it not find the right systems, or did it not do the research well, or, you know, there's like lots of different ways that it could go wrong.
Yeah, spot on. And I'm sure there's like I think that's a good way to approach it. And then Jay, to your question, yeah, there's a very like powerful paradigm that is emerging in software development in terms of like keeping these agents on track over like long context horizons and like larger tasks in general. And broadly, this can be defined as like the plan implement loop. And there's like an optional research step that is just very software dependent. But like at a high level, the plan implement loop is if you can define a plan, a pretty explicit plan of what you want the agent to do, no matter how big the task, it actually is quite good at sticking to that plan and executing it. So in my personal development workflows, I always start by building a plan for a feature. Pick a GitHub issue. I build a plan that's really like long, like 1,000, 1,500 lines of markdown long. And then I spend a lot of time reviewing that plan. Does this plan make sense? Did the model get anything wrong in this plan? And once I feel confident in the plan, then I basically tell the model to go implement the plan, delegate each task to a sub-agent to manage the context. And after the sub-agent completes the task, mark it done on the plan and do that again until the entire plan is done. You can apply that exact same paradigm to any like long running like research task, many tasks we do like in the PM space, where you might like research like this is like a great use case. You're going to develop like a long plan of things that like questions you want answered, how you might go about that research, and like what are the deliverables. And then you can throw it into Claude Code and say, hey, go execute this and delegate these research tasks to sub-agents. This is exactly how like ChatGPT's deep research works. And it'll go ahead and like adhere to that plan like quite closely. So it's like an emerging technique, but one that is seemingly very effective in the software engineering space. And I suspect we'll start to hear a lot more applications of that same paradigm to non-technical uses as well.
Hey, Max, I'm going to jump in here. So you had a question. I don't think anyone's looking at the raised hands. The way you created the agent, is there like programming involved, or is it just creating a text file saying you are an agent, go behave like an agent? So the question is like, how do you create an agent?
Yeah. I'll just like show you. There's no coding involved. I'll just do this live. So we'll let this guy cook. It's going to take some time. I'm going to open up another terminal here. And I have a little fun little thing up here where it just like gives me little fortune cookie vibes. So it's sometimes it's unhinged though. Not good for.
Well, this is unhinged, right?
Not safe for work.
You will see what unhinged is.
So I'm gonna just create like a generic research agent, right? So like I went to Claude Code. I just used the agents command here. Create new agent. We'll put this. This doesn't matter. If you put it in personal, it'll be available across all of your projects. I'm just going to put this in this project. Generate with Claude. Like they just use Claude to generate more Claude. And then let's just say, I need a research. And the more specific you can be in this description, I think is pretty good. Yeah, it says it right there. Be comprehensive for best results. Need a research agent. Yeah.
Travis, you want to hit your question while this is all loading up? So.
Yeah, my question was like, do you find that the agents, because they're invoked with like a personality, that they naturally output content in that style, or have you had to play around with like kind of the I think it's output formats or something like that, output styles from Claude Code to kind of like really hone in some of these non-coding use cases, since the default seems to be like, I'm a developer, right?
Yeah. I always like include like a section in my prompts like about what I want the output format to be. So that's like this section basically. And like this is about as generic as it gets for me, which is like just like fill in the text for each of these sections. And I just kind of let it decide the best way to do that. A lot of times you might have to be like really explicit. I can after this I can like show like a really tangible like prompt in terms of like how I specify the output. And I'll be like very detailed, like here's the section, here's the things you include in the section, here's like the formats I want to see, etc. So yeah, like if you have explicit like output needs, you should throw that in your prompt. Jumping back into the agent creation here real quick. So just like, yeah, it's like this simple. Like the hardest part is because I'm colorblind. It's like, what color should I pick? We'll go pink. All right, so like that's it. Now our market research analyzer is there. Let's just like view what this looks like real quick. So
Get an MD file somewhere in your working directory. Where does this live?
yeah,
What's
this
there?
is where it lives right here. Just pop this open and like you can go ahead and edit this like as needed, but it is quite simple, right? They're using Claude to generate this document. Like a note of caution, like using Claude auto-generated stuff is a great place to start, get your feet wet, get a feeling for this stuff. But ultimately, like a lot of the value comes from like tuning these prompts to like be very specific to you and what you need. So there might be some like manual changes to this text you need. But yeah, no code, obviously.
Thank you.
And we can jump back over here, see what's going on. So we can see that our research tasks are done. All of them, we can see, look at how many tool calls these sub-agents use. 29 tools, 21, 24, 31. Like, look at these tokens, talk about context management. Like, if we just did this in line right here, like we would have ran out of context very quickly. And these are long, right? The 7 minutes for the longest one to research Zapier. That's a long running task right now. This is going to feel like a short running task in like a year, but like that's a like kind of interesting just like takeaway. Lots of tokens used, long running tasks, lots of tool calls. So like that's, it's doing a decent amount of due diligence. And now our primary agent is is creating that report. And while it does that, let me just quickly show this prompt. So this is a prompt I use to plan features. And I just want to point out some things. First of all, you can see how long, like this is long. It's not like massively long, but like general takeaways in terms of like creating very high quality prompts is being very explicit about what you want. I'm asking for some like intermediary outputs. I'm being very specific about the sub-agents I want. So I'm not just saying use a sub-agent, I'm saying go use the code-based locator sub-agent. So if you have sub-agents and you want your agent to use it, tell it that. And then let's look at the output format I ask. Plan development. Yeah, so here's like the detailed plan. So I'm like, this is where I'm like denoting that this is what the plan should look like. So provide an overview. I want to know at a high level what phases you're describing. What is the current state analysis? It's always important to like tell your models to give you context, to give you confidence that it knows what it's talking about, like reasons why, or tell it to explain the context it saw. That's what this current state analysis is for. So I want to know what it thinks the current state of the code base is. Like, what are you not doing? Like this is really important. Like, do not create a list of things we are not going to do in this implementation. And this helps the sub agent stay on task, or the implementer agent, I should say. And then like detailed like phases. So this is like one way to like keep this stuff very very detailed. Like write the file here. And so you can really go down a rabbit hole and spend a lot of time writing prompts, which is good. Okay, jumping back over here.
And sorry, just linked question, Max. Sub agent, is that another agent, or is this a special category called sub agent?
Over here.
No, this is generally in the ecosystem. You mentioned agents and sub agents. So I was wondering if sub agent is a special, like an object or a special entity, or is an agent also a sub agent of sorts?
I kind of think of it as like primary agent and sub agent. Like right now I'm interacting with the primary agent. So like if I asked it quite like a question, this would be me interacting with the sub agent. And then the primary agent has the construct of a sub agent available to it. And that's what these task tool calls are. They really should say like sub agent, but they're tasks. And so that's how I like differentiate between those two.
But fundamentally, they are the same thing, right? Everything is an agent.
It all comes down to context. The only difference between the two is what context each of these things sees. You can like going back to our market research agent right here. This has all the same tools that the primary agent will have, but if I wanted to, I could give it access to only specific tools. So really the only fundamental difference is what context it sees and what task it's told to do.
And so when an agent spins up a sub agent, I'm assuming it gives that limited context, and that's the saving, right?
Yeah. So in Claude Code, a new sub agent will have fresh context window plus whatever the primary agent tells it.
Yeah, got it.
The primary agent will prompt a sub agent like I prompt a primary agent, and that's why I can tell the primary agent what to tell the sub agent. Kind of a little wacky now that I say it out loud, but that is kind of the AI. So yeah, here's what our output looks like in Markdown. Let me open this in a more user-friendly format. So this is like a Markdown report of what it found. So like our executive summary, product comparison table, like it nails the pricing. Ease of use. This is kind of an interesting one. Like, okay, like let's see if this aligns with what I think. Yeah, they're all pretty easy to use. Okay, integrations. This is helpful. So it does like a pretty like good job. Like having done this myself, I can gut check it. And it's not perfect, but it's decent. And yeah, looking at my watch here, I see we got 2 minutes left. I want to make sure we have time for questions.
Could this have been done in deep research versus Claude Code? Like this specific query? Like, how would you think about the differences between the two?
So I suspect it could. The differences are that like I have much more control over the output format. I have much more control over the actual prompt. And were this like kind of like directionally incorrect, or I had follow-up questions, maybe I wanted to add a new software to it, I could just write that in to the text box here and have it update the whole report. So kind of the headline there is like you just have a lot more control over what's going on in this in order to come up with this this output. And also I think like just I don't know, like I wonder how people feel about this comment, but like deep research to me feels like I am like researching. This feels like it's like a little bit shallower than what like I would use deep research for, if that makes sense. I don't know. Yeah.
So I know we have like 30 seconds left or so. This was fun. Thanks for just hopping on super last minute. I think you all have my email if you need to get a hold of me. If you want to DM me on LinkedIn or whatever, just do so. You can get a hold of us. Thank you, Max, who in, let's say, like maybe 45 minutes needed to put together something like this for a big group. So I appreciate you. But yeah, any last minute questions before we wrap up? All right, cool. Thanks all. And then give us some feedback if you think that this is valuable. Then we can host other kind of versions like this as well. But this has been fun. All right, see you guys.